When I wrote the song Glad to Be Gay for a Pride March in 76, I didn't have any thoughts about playing it beyond that one occasion. It was written as a kind of tirade against gay complacency in the face of this heavy manners from the police. But then when punk came along, and I ended up playing in pubs and clubs with the modestly named Tom Robinson Band, and confrontation was the order of the day, and wearing your heart on your sleeve, then I thought, well, let's try this out, and just threw it into the set to see what would happen. And I fully expected to get bottled off the stage, but in fact, heterosexual audiences, or just general audiences that obviously had their mix of gay or not gay in there, accepted it. And they went, yeah, fair enough, brave stance, we'll go for that. And in the terms of the media, I think there were about 50-50 between sympathetic non-gay people who would go, yeah, well, that's a brave stance, it's worth supporting, we'll help you, and closeted gay people who had entrenched positions in the media and didn't want to be tarred with that brush, thank you very much. And so, in a way, some surprising people that you thought would be your allies ended up not supporting it, but then some surprising other people who you, like John Peel, who you thought would not necessarily get on board, actually went out of their way to support it. The other really important thing to say about gay liberation in the early 70s is I'm using the word gay indiscriminately rather than LGBT, because back then that's what gay meant. The gay in the Gay Liberation Front wasn't to do with exclusively homosexual men who only sleep with men. It was to do with everything that was non-heterosexual. So LGBT and all shades in between, and our sympathetic straight friends, were all welcome to march under that banner.
It was an umbrella term.
It was an umbrella term. And you can understand, of course, the feminists who felt that lesbians were kind of getting a little bit left out of the picture with all these noisy men grabbing the attention. They went, well, no, lesbian is a separate thing. We're not going to be part of that gay movement. But at that time, it was women and men together, and certainly every nuance of bisexuality and different kinds of sexuality and all the kind of genders were very much there together under that one banner.
Was there a lot of support within gay circles? I know, for instance, I've spoken to people who've worked at Gay News, and they said some people within the so-called gay community were very anti-gay news. They didn't want it politicised. They wanted to have their lives where they felt accepted, but they wanted to have their gay lives in the pubs and the clubs, keep it underground, but not to rock the boat. Were there any gay people that said to you, come on, stop creating a fuss, stop rocking the boat, it's only going to lead to trouble?
When I wrote Sing If You're Glad to Be Gay in 76, it was very much an attack on the people who wanted the status quo for the comfortable, closeted scenesters, the people who already had their circle of friends, they had their lives, they had their lovers, and they didn't want their lives upset in any way, and regarded strident calls for change as kind of rocking the boat. So this was it was meant to be an attack on that complacency, because you used to go to discos in town where people would wear the little yellow Glad to Be Gay badges, which predated the song, and then they'd take them off when they were going outside, going onto the street, because they weren't that glad. And I just thought the song ought to catalogue one thing after another that's currently going on. So sing if you're still glad to be gay after all that lot.
Was it a release then for you? It was about getting things off your chest with regard to what gay people were doing, about the society, I know about police raids, etc. So it was really a political standpoint.
I think being gay at that time, was political, whether you wanted it to be or not. The classic thing that somebody says, oh, I'm not interested in politics, and the riposte to that is, well, politics is interested in you, and you leave it, and they'll put their finger in your pie and have a good old poke about. And we saw that, fair enough, once HIV bit, and we started getting those horrendous headlines in the tabloid press in the 80s, and when we got the horrendous indifference of the Conservative government at that time It took them till what, 87 or something before they brought that kind of Don't Die of Ignorance campaign in. They were quite happy for as long as they thought it was just queer people getting picked off by this horrendous disease. And yeah, we knew who our friends were by then. And at that point, I think politicisation was very much more on the agenda. Once we realised that whether we wanted to regard them as our enemy or not, they certainly regarded us as their enemy.
You talk about your friends. Was Gay News one of your friends?
I loved Gay News and I loved the people who worked there. And I have fond memories of Dennis Lemon, Michael Mason, Jean-Charles Randre, Keith Howes, of course, Bob Workman, the photographer. Shouldn't name check people because there are so many others who were part of that founding team.
So what role do you think Gay News played in the popularity, if at all, of the Tom Robinson Band?
I don't know if Gay News played a big part of the popularity of the Tom Robinson Band, but I do think that Gay News formed an enormous part in the outlook and foundation of the Tom Robinson Band. It informed my own political growth, such as it was. I think the support that they gave to our band within the community was very valuable, as you know, all publicity is good publicity, and it was great when they supported us. But hopefully, with the mass power of EMI behind us, the band would have had some success of one kind or another. So it was moral support that I really drew from that. It was terrific to find this paper that I admired and believed in so much was supporting us. And of course, we played in Trafalgar Square at the rally to try and support Gay News against Mary Whitehouse, and we contributed to the Fighting Fund. In terms of music as a liberating force, I think its greatest strength is as a tonic for the troops, rather than as a tool of conversion. I don't think any National Front skinheads turned up at a Rock Against Racism gig and went, oh, you know, I see the light. I think what happened was that ordinary people who were concerned about racism, living isolated lives in towns around the country, would feel dispirited every time they heard a workmate or a schoolmate or their parents make some thoughtless racist remark. And then they'd go to a Rock Against Racism gig that night, and there'd be 200 or 2,000 people who were singing along with the same songs as them from that area. And you'd realise you're not alone. That is right. You know, these... And the artists on stage acted as a kind of parabolic mirror, reflecting back to the audience their own prejudices and beliefs. I don't think we changed people's minds, but I think we focused, acted as a focal point for what people already believed, and gave them a sense of solidarity to go out and argue the case and change the world one person at a time. I'm not a big fan of labels, as you can imagine, because of that. Because the reality of my situation is that I was a gay man who fell in love with a woman. And when you meet the person you want to spend the rest of your life with, that's not the point at which you go, well, is this the right label for me, or is that okay for me to do? You go, this is the right person I want to live with. You don't care about the plumbing.
It's about who you fall in love with.
It's about who you fall in love with.
Not their gender or sexuality.
And Lord knows we've seen enough apparently heterosexual women or men who've gone through life and suddenly in their mid-30s met somebody of the same sex and fallen in love as out of the blue, and they've gone, whoa, this is the person I want to be with. But that doesn't invalidate their previously heterosexual life. And because you have to be, you know, on the whole, you tend to be in a partnership with one person. So you're either with somebody of one sex or with somebody of the other. And I could have fallen in love with a man or a woman. It turned out to be a woman, but that didn't affect the way that I felt about men. And to this day, you know, the two of us will walk down the road and go get a load of in with the big nose.
So, what label, if you had to, would you give yourself? Gay, bisexual, heterosexual, or nothing?
Well, I've spent 10 years fighting the label. I kept saying, no, I'm still a gay man. I just happen to be in love with a woman. Nobody could ever get their heads around it whenever that I talked to. and they said, no, it's just a cop out, this is nonsense. And so in the end, about the mid-90s, I just went, fuck it, I'm bisexual. If liking men but being in love with a woman makes me bisexual, then that's what I am. Call me that if you like. And in a way, bisexual get a bad press. I'd given bisexuals a bad press myself because I always thought that bisexuals were just gay people who hadn't come out properly. You know, I really didn't believe in bisexuality very much in my younger, more militant years. So it came as quite a shock to find that such a thing did exist and that I was it. So in '97, I got an invitation to come and perform at the bisexual tent at Pride on Clapham Common. And I gratefully accepted, and it was the first time I'd been back to Pride for 10 years, after I got booed off stage in '87 on the main stage. And I went into the bi tent at Pride and got up on the stage, and it was packed, it was rammed, it was wonderful. And as I was tuning up, somebody shouted, "Where have you been, Tom?" And I said, "Making babies." And they all cheered. And it was like another homecoming, because these were queer people who knew about making babies and who weren't going to judge me for any lifestyle choice I had made or any emotional involuntary thing that had happened to me. If I knew what the secret to writing a good song was, I would have had more than 2 hits. Sometimes you get lucky, sometimes you don't. I got lucky a couple of times and managed to build a whole career off, 2 well-known songs. If there was a magic formula or a secret to it, then I would definitely have managed more. But I do think that quantity is very important, so that if you're a songwriter, most songwriters do everything except write songs. We find all kinds of excuses to avoid the blank page and just get on with it and finish a duff song. So I think write lots of shit songs is probably the best route towards ending up with at least one really good one. So I did my best, and I'm proud of what we achieved, and having taken part in the AntiNazi Rally, I think, for 80,000 people in Victoria Park in 1978, I think is the thing I'm most proud of all, is that we stood up to be counted against the forces of reaction, the forces of racism at that time that were in danger of becoming political mainstream. And I'm glad that bands like X-Ray Specs and The Clash, Steel Pulse and ourselves were able to stand up there and say no.
Is that your greatest achievement, would you say then?
My greatest achievement... no, my greatest achievement is my children. I think that's something that is there for everybody to achieve. It's a challenge that faces all of us, and bless them, if they grow up to be happy and live fruitful lives that kind of make the world a better place rather than a worse place, then that will have been an achievement that will last. Whereas, pop is so much candy floss. I think it's just important that whatever field you're in, whether it's in the public eye or just in your private sphere, being yourself and being openly who you are and living your life openly as an example to others is the best thing any of us can do, and that's how we've managed to get to where we are today. It's the courage of ordinary women and men living their lives.
Is there anything you would have done differently?
I think if I'd known what I know now, I would never have bought that grey Cortina. I had a song called "Wish I Had a Grey Cortina," and it earned me enough money to buy one in the end. And that way disappointment lies. It's always better to leave those things unfulfilled, The grey Cortina was a bitter disappointment to me.
Is that the advice you would have given your younger self? When you were 13, when you were 16, you were going through that angst. What would you tell your younger self now?
It gets better. That's the campaign I love. I think the single biggest, most wonderful campaign out on the internet at the moment is It Gets Better, because anyone can do it. Any of us can actually make a little video for it, submit it, and we just tell our story down the camera, say, it gets better.